Hello. Welcome to Almost 80. I'm Bennye, your host. Now that you have rung the bell, come on in, have a seat, and make yourself at home. Good morning.
Good morning.
How you doing today?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so happy to be back on this train that we're on, these podcasts.
Me too. It's been entirely too long. Too much has actually passed since we last sat to record a session.
I know.
An episode.
And I think we need to do a little better because every time we start an episode, we say it's been too long.
Every time.
At some point.
At some point, you have to straighten it out, don't
Step up and straighten the thing out.
Okay, this year in 2025.
Yes.
We're going to do better.
Do better. We will.
We'll be more consistent.
There you go.
But I'm glad that we have the opportunity at all just to get some of this down, right?
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Yeah, even if it's not the pace that we originally wanted to do, sometimes life happens.
All the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
Not sometimes, all the time.
All
life
the time.
happens.
Yeah.
And so here we are.
Yep. Yep. The last time we talked about the family that I was born into.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
So I just kind of want to pick up from there.
Okay. You want to tell us more about your family?
Yeah.
So where do you want to start?
Well, I think I'm going to start when I was 2 years old. And this was in 1947. My aunt, Mama Mamie, we called her. And she was daughter's sister, my grandmother's sister, my mother's aunt. So she was great aunt.
Great aunt. Okay.
Yeah, she lived in Kingsville, Texas, down in South, near the border, actually.
And why was she there? Why did she live there?
I don't know how she got there, but she was married and, she had a child down there and everything. So I don't know how she got there.
Okay.
But, her husband worked on the railroads and maybe that's where his job was. I really don't know, where it started from or whatever. But she had come to visit us. And for some reason, she wanted to when she got ready to go, she begged Mom and Daddy to let me go back home with her. Of course, they said no for the longest time because they couldn't figure out how she needs to take me anywhere,
Right. Can you imagine letting your 2-year-old go somewhere?
Yeah, 2-year-old.
Especially with your great aunt.
I could not even imagine that,
Right.
But they finally said, okay, we'll let her go. And I think I was going to stay a couple of weeks and then she was going to bring me back. So we went by train. I guess we caught the train in Texarkana, which is like 35 miles from where we lived. On the train, Mama Mamie told me later that I sang and danced on this train. I was just the life of the party, kept everybody awake and all this stuff. She would have to tell me, okay, come on, sit down, from time to time.
I think we are maybe stumbling upon the reason why she wanted to take you back because you were a ham.
I must have been, apparently.
You were probably a handful.
Right. And people on the train gave me money.
Oh my gosh, to a 2-year-old.
To a 2-year-old.
Can you imagine?
And I didn't even know what money was, but apparently it was something that got my attention because I think the more they gave me, the more I was ready to sing and dance,
Well, you liked this show. You liked the floor. You had the stage. You had the stage.
Yeah,
that's so funny to me because you've always enjoyed the stage. We haven't told our listeners how much you have loved performing in your life. We haven't gotten to that yet.
No, we haven't gotten to it.
But it started when you were 2.
When I was 2 years old, yeah.
That's awesome.
So while I was visiting her down in Kingsville, Texas, a tragedy happened in my family. And I was the 8th of 9 children. So 8 of my brothers and sisters were still back home. And actually what happened was we had a terrible house fire. And all 8 of my brothers and sisters were burned to death. I have to take a breath on that. Yeah.
I'm still just so sorry that this happened to them.
Yes. And what happened was, as the story was told, Mom and Daddy had gone over to visit Mama's parents, Daughter and Daddy Norman.
Your grandparents.
Yeah. So she had put them to bed and she had told JV, who was the oldest child, to stay awake until they got back. Sounds like that maybe they did this a few times anyway. He was very responsible. And he always stayed awake and everything. But apparently.
How old was he? Do you know at the time?
I think he was 11. But, apparently he fell asleep.
Yeah.
And a week or so before that, a lady, Mrs. we called her Cousin Charles, she lived up the road and she had come to visit Mama. And she told Mama that they needed to do something about the flue, the chimney. They didn't have a chimney. The wood stove had this pipe going up through the ceiling, going up through the roof. And it was raggedy or something.
Yep.
And she had told Mama, she said, y'all need to do something about this because this could turn into a fire.
Yeah.
And they hadn't gotten around to doing it. So they're thinking that this is probably what happened,
Yeah.
you know.
Oh.
Yeah.
So
So
they had left, and they had left him in charge as a, which I think, people do leave a, 11-year-old is getting to the point where they could, especially if the kids were sleeping.
right, right,
So they went over to see her parents.
right.
And then how did the story kind of unfold? How did they figure out there was a fire there?
Well, Mama never really talked about it. Daddy didn't talk about it at all. Like growing up, he never talked about it. I don't. I just think he never could do it.
So he didn't talk at all about the older siblings, the
No,
five, nothing. Like just did not utter a single word about it.
nothing. Yes. But Mama every now and then would talk and, would say a few things about what happened and say something about maybe wanted to, somebody, one of the kids or something. And I never felt empowered to ask her a lot of questions because I knew how painful it was for her. And I didn't want her to feel that pain again.
Of course.
So I never really asked. But in 98, I had started kind of writing the story and I thought about Uncle Essel who knew the story. So I made a trip to DeKalb. And at this time, he was 98 years old. And when we drove up to his house, he got out. He said, "Oh, Bennye, Bennye, Bennye." He knew me and everything. So we talked and I asked him about what happened.
Yeah. What did he tell you about that night?
The first thing he said was, "I can never get this out of my head, what happened that night." And actually, Mom and Dad on their way down to Dad and Mom and daughter's house, they stopped by there. They stopped by his house. We often did that. When we walked the roads going to one person's house, we would kind of stop along the way and have conversations with our
Mhm.
neighbors, with other people.
Oh, that seems so nice to me. Like that just feels so warm to me. This
Yes,
idea that you have that kind of open door communal environment, where
yes.
you could just shoot the breeze, stop by and say hello. And
Yeah, that
yeah.
was the community that we had.
Hmm.
So they had stopped by, and then they had gone on down to daughter's house, and then Uncle S.L. said he looked out of the window or somewhere, and he saw this light coming from over where we live. And all of a sudden, it hit him. He said that house is on fire. So he said, I need to go down and tell them." So sorry. So he
That's
left.
okay. Take your time.
He left and was on his way down to tell Mama and Daddy that the house was on fire. So he went down and got them. So they started running toward the house. And
Mm,
as they were running toward the house, somebody in a pickup truck was meeting them and he stopped. And Uncle said he doesn't even remember who he was. But whoever he was, he put Mom and Dad in the car and he told them that they needed to drive away from the house. So
mm,
he drove them away from the house so that they wouldn't witness it. They wouldn't be there.
mm.
Um, so, uh, so anyway, finally, they told him what had happened. My great grandfather, who lived up the road from us, had seen the light as well, and he ran. He had run down, and he tried to knock on a window, but the house was about falling in about that time, and he was unable to save anybody. So everybody, the whole community, had gathered, and it was just a terrible event. A terrible event.
And this is very rural Texas in 1947.
Right.
And if there had been, let's say, a group of firemen or that kind of thing in some locations, I'm just asking, they weren't in your hometown. There was no access to a fire truck
Right.
or any people like that who could help.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm
But
not sure that they would have. I mean, would they? I don't know if they would have. I don't know.
I don't really know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really know. But afterwards, Reverend Coy, who was Kun Child, the lady I told you who came down to
Mhm.
talk to Mama, and she told
Mhm.
her that they needed to do something about the stove. Her husband was a preacher in the town, and he also was a craftsman. So he made
Mm.
caskets for the community, actually.
Okay.
When people died, he made the
He
caskets
made the
for them.
caskets.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
So he made 2 big caskets. Well, I don't know how big they were, but
Yeah.
they put 4 kids in each casket because that's the
Mm.
way they were sleeping, 4 to a bed. And, I guess they had I never got the whether or not they had a funeral at church or they just did the burial. I really don't know.
Mm.
But, that's
This
one of
is
the
just
things that
so devastating.
yeah, yeah.
It's so devastating.
But, SED, one of my sister who died in the fire, Uncle SL said that she came by from school, because, we walked to school and back home. And like I say, she stopped by their house. He said that when she got ready to go, she gave him like the biggest hug he had ever gotten, and she just didn't want to let him go. And then when she left, she was walking down the road and he said she kept waving. She kept looking back. She kept
Yeah.
waving, you know?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, what a memory for him, right? That he was able to remember that about her.
right.
And if, there's no way to know that things like this are about to happen, you
No,
know?
no way. No way.
You know?
So after that, mom and daddy went on to have 7 more children, you know,
Mm. Mhm.
and they took care of me.
Yeah. And you were an only child for a while.
I was an only child for a while. Yeah.
Yeah. What was that like? Do you remember any of
One of
that?
my first memories was, and I think I must have been 3 or 4 years old, I guess, and it was Christmas time, and, a box came in the mail. The mailman brought it to the house, and it was a big box. I'm surprised that the mailman it was kinda like Prime, now. Yeah. So he brought this big box to the house, and, like, Christmas morning, mama had opened the box, and she had sat this little chair. It was a little velvet chair for me, and inside the chair, there was a box that had a picture on it and a picture of a locket or something, and she said, "Open it." So I opened it, and it was a little red locket for me. I think it was like a bracelet and a necklace
How sweet.
that was for me.
How
That
sweet.
was, like, one of my first memories, and I'm sure I was wondering where my siblings
Mhm.
were, but I didn't know. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you remember I mean, you were so little. Do you remember wondering about that? Or,
I don't remember wondering about it.
yeah, you were really small.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thinking back on it, I'm thinking that I must have remembered that,
I'm sure.
asking questions in my own head,
Yeah.
you know?
And this is something we have actually never talked about, but how you almost have stayed with her parents, right?
Right,
When
right.
there was no house,
Yeah.
no longer a house. Do you remember what the journey was toward having your own home again?
I I don't. I don't remember, like, being happy that we were in our own home. I don't remember any of that.
Mhm. Do you
No.
remember even going to a different
Yeah,
home?
I do remember going I remember when dad was building it, dad and Uncle Dad
Oh,
built the house.
they built it.
So
Okay.
along the way, as they were building it, we would stop by there
Yeah.
and to see, how it was coming along and all that.
Okay. You remember that. You must have
I
been
do I
little.
do remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember that. Yeah,
Oh, okay. And
yeah.
what kind of impact I mean, this is as a parent, right? You're a parent, I'm a parent. And I'll be honest, I don't know how your parents survived this. And
Right.
so I'm wondering how do you think they were able to manage after losing 8 children?
You know, first of all, it had to be just, unimaginable. Just you can't I can't even get into what they were feeling. But mama told me, she did tell me, she said, that she went down to the branch. There was like a little branch with water in it.
You called it a branch?
We called it a branch, but it was like a little stream of
Like a
water.
stream or
Yeah, it was like a little stream of water.
okay.
And she said that she went down there because she was just going to lay down and let the water take her under. And she would just die right there. So she tried to commit suicide. But she said once she got there and she looked at the water, and I think she might have even stepped in a while or whatever.
Mm.
But something came over her and said, "You don't really have to do this. You don't have to do this." So she turned around and came back to the house.
Oh.
And after that, she became the most optimistic
Mhm.
person that I have ever known.
Same. This is the only granny I know was she was I think tough doesn't even describe it because she didn't have an edge to her. When people use the word tough, I always think of someone has like a little bit of a sharp edge.
Right.
She just had she was just so positively resilient. Like,
Yes.
she just there was nothing that could happen to her that would make her feel like she couldn't get
Right.
through it. That was
Right.
the granny that I knew, which is many, many years after this event, but she just was like, "Keisha, it'll be okay.
Uh-huh.
Yep, it'll be
Yeah.
alright.
Whenever I would call her, her word was, "Turn it over." She said, "If you can do something about it, do something about it.
Do something.
If you can't, turn it over to God."
Turn it over because you don't have any control." Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Get it away from you. It does not have to be with you. So she was very optimistic, very,
Yes, she was.
yes. And
I mean, she was just such an amazing I mean, I just first of all, I'm so glad that she was around for me to meet.
right,
And
right,
to get to know because, I mean, there are many people, and we don't even know how we would have reacted, right? Who may not have survived that,
right.
who may not have been able to get through it with a sound mind,
Yeah, yeah.
you know? What do you think about your dad? How did he manage this?
My dad, my mom said he really started drinking heavily.
Yeah,
He became an alcoholic.
yeah.
I don't remember ever seeing him drunk
Hmm,
or drinking
hmm,
because she said at one point, what happened to him was he got very sick one time when he drank, very sick. And after that, he never did take another drink.
okay.
He,
So you have one of those bottom experiences.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So like I
yeah.
say, I never remember seeing him drunk.
So maybe his period of drinking wasn't that long, or do you think he just hid it from you all?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I am
Mhm.
not sure. But I just remember that I don't remember seeing him drunk.
Yeah.
Never like that.
Yeah. But she describes that he used alcohol
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
to get through this.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can see that. Well, we've talked about kind of the night, but I think, I'd be remiss or we'd be remiss maybe if we don't ask how this has felt for you and what your thoughts on your own existence are.
I, um, I have wondered, like, my whole life when I realized that I was the only one saved. I have wondered why.
Mm,
Was there some special purpose?
yeah.
And then often during my life, I would wonder if I'm fulfilling whatever it is I need to be doing. So I often had this as like a burden
Yes.
to try and figure out, like, why me?
Yeah.
And I probably still don't have the answer.
Right.
You know, I just know that I have lived my life according to the dictates from God, I think, because I have tried to listen to Him and, work out, navigate life.
Yeah.
My own kids, my husband, my whatever, my jobs, everything.
So this is it's kind of tricky because and I can't imagine being in your position where you are left with those kinds of purpose and existential questions of why was I saved or why was I spared? And does that mean I have to fulfill some kind of expectation in my life or some kind of big accomplishment? Like, what is the grand reason for my being here? I mean, I don't know how you've managed that, but it feels like just the ability to live your life is the gift that you were given,
Right.
whatever that meant for you. I guess I'm saying I don't think there was anything that you didn't do, right? There was no expectation that you didn't meet.
Right. It was of
Yeah.
my own doing, my own thoughts,
Yes.
you know.
Right.
And we are a prisoner of our own thoughts.
Absolutely.
And sometimes when we can't analyze it, we think that there's something wrong with us, or we keep looking, we keep searching, we keep doing all these things. But just looking over my life, I don't have many regrets. I am happy for every experience,
Hmm.
and I'm grateful that I'm still here. And in
Me
2 or 3
too.
months, I'll be 80 years old
You'll
if
be
the Lord
80.
spares me. Yes.
Yes,
So
yes.
I'm just grateful.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Did Granny ever talk to you about the fact that you were the only person who survived of her children at that point? Did you all ever have a conversation about that?
No, I don't. I
Yeah.
don't remember having a conversation about that.
Yeah.
But I do think that looking back on some things, I think that maybe my siblings who came after me might have thought that I was like her pick or something
Mm,
because I was the only one saved. I don't know.
mm,
I never felt that I was special to her in that.
yeah.
I always felt that we were all the same, and she treated us all the same to me.
Yeah.
But everybody has their own idea of what is going on and how things have made them feel.
From my position as her granddaughter, I really felt like she had a unique way of making you feel like you were the most special person in the room.
Okay.
I felt that. Not you,
Uh-huh.
but I mean all of us. Like I think
Right.
she had the capacity to treat all of the people in her space as if
Right.
they were the
Right.
only one. You
Right.
know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
that she loved them for who they were, and it was the most love that she had ever given anybody. And everybody who came in contact with her probably felt that way.
Right.
that,
Right.
you know, that
Right.
she valued all of us, yet she valued each of us distinctly. And so she had a gift that way, right?
Did.
She had a very high emotional intelligence. I mean, she
Yes.
was able to read people and assess the social situation and figure out the dynamic. She was wise. I mean,
Yes.
just
Yes.
so wise about
And so loving
situations
and so
and so
loving.
loving,
Oh,
so
so loving.
loving. She was
So
loving when I didn't want her to be.
yes. Yes. When I would want her to curse people out or something,
Yes,
she just
she was
wouldn't do it.
still loving.
Yes, she was still loving.
I know this has been hard for you.
Yes, it really has been hard. And I think I just want to take this time after 77 years to say goodbye to my brothers and sisters that left me at that time in the house fire. JV, Essady, Charles, Earl, Eva, Robert, Clarence Ray, Ola Faye. Goodbye. And I just pray that you have rested in peace all of these 77 years. Thank God.
I want to thank you for sharing the journey of losing your family with us.
Yeah. I have talked not many times, but a lot of times I've shared this story with people and I've never like broken up like this. But today, I there it is. Yeah,
There it is.
yeah, sorry.
It's hard. Why are you sorry?
Well, I don't
You
know.
shouldn't be.
I-
This is a very painful experience that you lived through.
Right,
And I think, how we respond is how we respond.
right. Absolutely.
Hmm. Well, thanks everyone for listening to our episode today.
And we'll see you next time.
We'll see you next time.
A brighter day.
Brighter day.
Yes.
Thank you for stopping by. I'll see you next time.